In this video, we're going to talk about the static keyword. Okay, so what is static? What's this idea of static? I want to go to my dog and I want to keep track. Maybe I have a kennel. I want to keep track of how many dogs I've created at my kennel. So I'm going to add a field called dogs created. It's going to hold an int, because when we count dogs, we count them by ints. We don't create half dogs, so int makes sense. Okay. And every time I create a dog, so let's go here. I'm just gonna deal with, let's do this one down here. I'm going to add one. To the number of dogs I created. And actually I should do this in every case somebody creates one using this constructor. So when a dog gets created, we're going to add one to this dogs created variable. All right. Let's go back over here to our demo. And I didn't add getters and setters for this dogs created. I definitely can do that. I really don't want people to be able to set that value, because it should only go up when a new dog is created in one of these two constructor methods. We might want to add a getter at some point, but for now, let's just use our troubleshooting tools, because we need a little review of that too. Let's use our troubleshooting tools. Let's go over here to our dog demo. I created these two dogs. Okay, and I'm going to watch what happens. I'm going to create a little breakpoint here before we create our dogs. And let me run this with debugging. And let's look. We have our spa created. Telephone number and address aren't set to anything, but that's okay. The next line that runs is going to be creating Fido, which is dog 1. So let's go ahead and hit that. And now we've created dog 1. We can expand it. We can see his name is Fido, and he's 3 years old and has not been groomed. And now our dog's created value has been set to 1. All right. So let's go and create our second dog, my dog. We'll hit the next button. Now let's look down here at my dog. My dog has a name, Sienna, and an age 5, set to false, and dogs created is still equal to 1. Because when we do these fields, just like age and just like their name, each dog keeps track of its own values. So each dog has its own name and it keeps track of its own name. Each dog has its own age and it keeps track of that. Separately from the other object created, it has its own age and name. So, of course, dogs created, they're each going to have their own value for dogs created. But that isn't really what I wanted to keep track of there. I wanted to keep track of how many dogs have been created for my dog class total. Okay. So to make that happen differently, stop this. Let's go over to our dog. I want this value to be shared among all dogs. I don't want an individual value like for each object like I do for age and string. I want this to be a shared value. So let's put the keyword static in here. So static says that this variable doesn't belong to the objects that we make from our class, but it belongs to the class itself. It belongs to the dog class and not its individual objects. And every dog will know about dogs created, but it's a shared variable. So if one dog increases the value, it increases for all dogs. So let's go back over here. All I've done is add this keyword static. And let's run this again with debugging so it stops before it creates our dogs. So here we go. We have our spa. Let's create our first dog by hitting next. I look down here at dog 1. Still has his own name. Still has his own age. Now we see a static variable here that says dogs created as 1. Let's create the second dog by letting this line of code run that creates my dog. And now you look at my dog, and it also has his own age, her own age, and her own name, and a static variable called dogs now set to 2. If you look at dog 1, dogs created is also set to 2. So this value of 2 is shared between all the objects because it doesn't belong to the objects anymore like name and age does. It belongs to the class itself. And as a matter of fact, we should be able to print out from the dog class dogs created. Now, why can't I do that? Because that's set to private. Let's for this, we'll set it to public just so we can. And run. And it says there's been 2 dogs created. If I'd create a third dog, that variable would go up to 3. So dogs created is a static variable. It means it belongs to the dog class and not the individual dogs that we create from the class. It exists all the time because our dog class exists. We don't have any objects created from it. Where else do we use this? Where else does this static word come in? If we look at, let's go to our dog demo. What about our main method? It is static. And why is it static? It has to be static because when our program starts, we haven't created any objects, right? So since the other methods and fields require us to create an object before we use them, we have to put static so that this method can run before an object's ever been created, because it is our first method. Let's look at another class. Let's look up the Java math class. See another place that static has been used and you may not even realize it. If you look down here at all these methods, we'll look at math.pow for example. We've used that one before. Math.pow, you can see that that is a static method. All these methods in the math class, remember, we can run them by using the name of the class, not the name of the object, the name of the class. So math.pow, math.max, math.min, math.round. All these are static methods that we can run without having to ever create a new object first. Like we did with spa, we had to create a new dog spa. For dogs, we had to create a new dog. But for static variables and static methods, we don't have to create an object first. The variable or method belongs to the class and it can be run without creating an object. So using static as a shared variable among all your objects might be something that you'll need for your arcade application.